Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Allison Schaff with SmashFly and I am so excited to jump into today's conversation on Google for Jobs, Facebook Jobs, and more. Just a couple things before we dive in. So I always feel a little silly saying this because if you can hear me, you're already doing it right. But audio is available via your computer speakers or headset, or if needed, we do have some call-in numbers for you right on the slide there. If you have any questions today, please don't hesitate to pop them right into that little Q&A box in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. We'll leave 10 minutes or so at the end of the presentation for any of your questions. If you experience any technical difficulties today, you can call ReadyTalk support at 800-843-9166. Don't worry about writing that down. I will type that into the chat window for your reference in a little bit. In case you missed something or you want to look back or share this, today's session will be recorded, and we will send you links to the recording and slides in probably a day or two after the webinar. Also, by attending this webinar, you're eligible to receive a SHRM Professional Development Credit, so watch your email for that as well. We have got some double founder power on today's call. Chris Foreman is the founder and CEO of Appcast. He's worked in the recruiting industry for 20 years developing smart recruiting tools that have helped hire millions of people around the globe. Fun fact, he has won HR Tech's Top Product of the Year award on multiple occasions. Chris, how are you doing today?
I am doing awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Would you like to tell us a little bit about Appcast?
Sure. So hi, everybody. This is Chris. I was just scrolling through the names of participants, and I see a lot of old friends. So it's lovely to talk to you all again. And those of you who are hearing Mike and I for the first time, welcome. It's nice to make new friends as well. Appcast is a software company based right near Dartmouth College. We were founded in 2014 to bring basically sophisticated software to the mission of optimizing recruitment advertising and therefore directly lowering everyone's cost per hire. The name that's oftentimes given to the type of software that we make is called programmatic job advertising tools. And we've got now it's closer to 800 customers, but a whole bunch of customers in corporate HR, job boards, the gig economy, staffing firms that use our software to optimize and improve their pay-for-performance job advertising. And I'm happy to announce that I am actually calling into the webinar today from our new office in Fredericton, New Brunswick. It's the newest of our 4 offices, and we've got 25 great team members up here. And no joke, I had to come back early to give this webinar from a company event where we all went curling. So just in time for the Winter Olympics, I got to learn how to curl. So I'm all fired up from that event.
Awesome. Wow. I am jealous of your team bonding activities, Chris.
There we are.
Well, great. So I'll introduce our second speaker, Mike Hennessy, founder and CEO of SmashFly. With 15-plus years of experience in recruiting technology, Mike designed and built the first web-based talent management system at BrassRing, now part of IBM Connexa. It's pretty cool. He went on to found SmashFly to pioneer a new category of HR technology focused on managing candidates before they apply, their recruitment marketing platform. So Mike, will you tell us a little bit about SmashFly?
Sure, thanks. And hello, everybody. As mentioned, my name is Mike Hennessy, and founded SmashFly back in January of 2007. Prior to that, as Ali mentioned, I was the chief architect at BrassRing. So I spent 10 years building the enterprise talent management systems that are now powering IBM's system, and started SmashFly with the goal of really focusing at the top of the funnel, understanding where applicant tracking systems pick up, which is when candidates apply. I saw the sort of opportunity to really build an enterprise piece of software that really drives and powers people to those applicant tracking systems. And so you can think of SmashFly as marketing automation software applied to the recruiting function. Over the last, it's actually our 11th year anniversary in January here, so we've been going at it for a while. kind of tale of two cities, bootstrapped the company for 7 years, kind of one client at a time, and then we decided to raise funding in June of 2014. And we've continued to build SmashFly I think we've got well over 100 customers now, enterprise customers. We've got 150 employees based in Concord, Massachusetts, and we've got employees spread out all across the U.S. In various roles, sales, marketing, implementation, training, and so forth. So excited to be on the webinar today and have this discussion with Chris.
Awesome. All right. Well, great. We're very excited to have both of you. So we're about to dive into the good stuff. Today what we'll be talking about, just to go over a quick overview, is just an overview of the macro changes in the industry that are impacting talent acquisition and how those are going to impact your recruiting organization. Then we'll be taking a deeper dive into the data and talking a little bit about multi-source attribution. And then finally we'll cover some recommendations for driving the most ROI from your budget in 2018 in the wake of these big, massive changes in talent acquisition. And the last thing I'll say before I am quiet so you can hear the good stuff is we'll be tweeting along at SmashFly and at Appcast_IO using the hashtag #RecruitingSmackdown. So feel free to join that conversation, and any questions or comments or thoughts or dreams you want to share will be on Twitter, so hope to see you there. All right, Chris, I'm handing it over to you.
Thanks, Allison. All right. I think you guys can probably tell from the pictures of Mike and myself, we've both been around the block for a while. I've been in the recruiting technology space for about 20 years, and I've got the gray hair to prove it. And I have to say that I think we're going to look back on 2017 as one of the most kind of formative transition years in the industry. Almost a paradigm-shifting year. And the reason that I think it kind of fits into that category, is for the preceding decade, basically in the recruitment advertising space, or kind of online job advertising space, the Smackdown story was pretty much the one that you see here. Indeed, through a lot of outstanding execution. Combined with kind of right time, right place, but predominantly just outstanding execution, became the preeminent and predominant job advertising platform in the world. Whatever market they entered, they dominated. Whatever market they entered, they shifted the discussion and they shifted how people looked at recruitment advertising. But in 2017, the world changed. And the world changed, by the entrance of Google predominantly, but to a lesser extent Facebook, coming into the recruitment advertising market. And what these two players have done is, in essence, kind of thrown, the cards up in the air. They have turned the industry much more into, what you're looking at here is a rugby scrum. It's a scrum. You have really strong people, kind of trying to push over the ball. And gain the advantage. But we're no longer in kind of a monopolar world, as it were, in recruitment advertising. And, quite candidly, that's going to be good for everybody that is on the phone call right now. So what I want to do, for the next few minutes is I want to dive into a little bit of detail on Google and Facebook, and also more broadly abstracted out from those two players and talk about how the market has changed and is rapidly changing in terms of how people pay for their job ads, and kind of talk about how those three things are kind of creating the perfect storm, as it were, for some pretty powerful paradigm shift in the marketplace. So. All right, so let's talk about Google. For the longest time, and again, this is no news here. This isn't something that is going to shock anyone. Depending on the data that you look at, between 30% and half of all online job searches started at the Google search bar. People would go and they would type in a keyword, a city, a functional keyword, and the word jobs. Or some combination thereof. And what ended up happening is you would get what you see on the screen right now. The top position, and depending on the keywords that you put in, you would have a couple of these at the top and a couple of them on the side. The one that's marked with an ad was a pay-per-click ad on Google. And then everything else that doesn't have that little ad logo below it were organic search results that were incredibly dominated by the major job boards. And so these organic search results, when you clicked on them, would bring you to that job board. And then if you're a job seeker, you would be able to discover the jobs that you are looking for on that site. Now, the primary winner in the old environment was Indeed.com. They were the early, before anyone else understood the power of the Google search bar. They understood the power of search engine optimization. And they developed the art and the science, heavy on the science, to maximize the traffic that they received from job seekers utilizing Google to start their job search. Okay, so this was before the summer of 2017. This is the way the world worked, and this was really beneficial for Indeed. But starting this summer, all of a sudden, the world started to change. When people went to go type in sales jobs Boston, what would end up happening is rather than having that SEM ad at the top and kind of immediately going into the organic search results, what you would have is some derivative of the user experience that you're seeing right now. And the reason why I say some derivative is that Google ran lots and lots and lots of tests to develop the most engaging and useful kind of user experience. And so this is just one of them. But what you're seeing here is Google started to show what technologists would call structured search results. So rather than just having the organic search results that were kind of amalgamations of pages that have been designed to be indexed by Google, just like you would have for blog posts or news articles, Google started to index individual jobs themselves and put them into a searchable database and show those jobs clearly at the top of each results page. And as you can see here, when you click on one of those, what you would be brought to is a full job description. What's happened with this change is that these structured search results have disintermediated the organic traffic that was purely dominated by Indeed. And the impact is being kind of felt far and wide in the industry. The impacts are probably, I would kind of put them into probably 5 major buckets. The first one is that those SEM ads that Google used to run, the ad at the top where if you typed in sales, Boston, jobs, job sites used to be able to buy those ads. And those ads were a way for people that didn't necessarily have organic traffic to put themselves in front of job seekers and acquire those job seekers. Since Google has started to put structured search results into their pages, they are selling fewer of those search engine marketing impressions, meaning the number of those ads is decreasing. The impact of that is that the costs that they charge for that reduced inventory is increasing because of supply and demand. And so this has created winners and losers. And for some job sites, the cost of acquiring job seeker eyeballs is increasing dramatically. And for others, they can't even afford to buy job seekers the way that they used to. The second impact of this is that this is by Google entering the job space, it is kind of dramatically changing the way job seekers find and apply to jobs and how organic traffic is flowing. And what I mean by that is in the old days, when somebody was on one of these pages, okay, let's see, the first set of results that they would show up is that's where the job seeker would most likely click. I want to find a sales job. I typed it in the search bar. I don't want to click on the ad. Boom. I'm going to go to the first one that I find because I know Indeed has those jobs. But now that they're getting these search results, they're able to actually search and find the job that they want on Google, so they're not being clicked away to a job site. But the second thing that's happening is that you'll notice that Indeed is allowing job seekers to choose which site they actually want to visit to apply to. So like this particular job can be found on Career Builder. This particular job can be found on Job Rapido. There are sites there are jobs out there that will say you can find this job on Monster, you can find it on Glassdoor, you can find it on LinkedIn, you can even find it directly on the applicant tracking system. And so the job seeker is given the choice to determine how they actually want to interact with that ad. Now, the one name that you're not going to hear is you're not going to hear Indeed, because Indeed has made the decision not to have their jobs indexed by Google. And so Google has opted out, Indeed has opted out of the Google index, which means almost overnight, all that free traffic that was flowing from Google to Indeed has shifted. It's being redirected to a lot of the other major players in the space. And so there's been a massive load leveling, as it were, between the job sites. Again, Indeed used to be a winner, and now whether it's LinkedIn, Glassdoor, ZipRecruiter, Career Builder, the organic traffic that used to go one way is now being redistributed another way. At Appcast, we track all this, and one of the things that we're finding is that there's been a very even distribution. There's been a lot of work, it seems, done by Google to ensure that there is no one particular winner in this organic traffic coming from Google search. And so it seems as though the peanut butter is being spread very evenly in the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The other thing that I think is really interesting from the Google standpoint is that if you take a look at the clicks that are coming from the Google search experience, they are converting to applications sometimes 4 times higher than what you find coming from other job search platforms. Now, one of the things that you may say, oh, well, this is because Google does it better, or because Google understands something about the job seeker that these other sites don't necessarily understand. And there may be some data that would support that. I don't have that per se. What I do have, though, is that the way that Google is interacting with job seekers, which is allowing them to discover the jobs, it is allowing them to see the full job description, and it is allowing them to actually choose where they want to apply. All these things, each one of these steps dramatically increases intent, so that when a job seeker actually clicks on one of those apply buttons, they have enough information to make the decision, and they have an affirmative choice about where they want to apply for that job. And the net impact of that is that the conversion rates are significantly higher than if you were just to track from a normal career site where somebody gets the title, the company, maybe a 50-word snippet, and then they're clicked off to the applicant tracking system. And all this kind of combines into a very seeker-centric, choice-based platform that is kind of redistributing the organic traffic that used to go one direction, primarily to Indeed, across the ecosystem. Now, one of the things that's starting to happen is more and more companies are starting to understand that they can have their jobs indexed directly by Google rather than having them indexed through a third party like a job board. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about at the end of this is, in fact, that we expect that more and more of this traffic will be, in the short run, be redirected to corporate applicant tracking systems rather than to job sites, as job seekers kind of see that option and can take advantage of it. But already in the job search space, there's been a response. There's been a massive focus in the job awareness and the job board business to start to build better tools for job seekers that allow them to apply easier and make it so that job seekers are incented to actually choose their site to interact with the job content. Okay, so clearly, by disintermediating the organic traffic, redirecting people into different to different sites, giving job seekers choice, and designing a platform that converts significantly higher, the entrance of Google is a massive change. Less of a massive change, but one that has the potential to be equally game-changing, is Facebook's entry into jobs. And this isn't just like Google. Google took, depending on how you count it, a couple of shots at getting into the job space. Facebook has done the same. But Facebook is aggressively entering the space with a hosted job application product that is designed initially, again, to work with job site partners to begin with, just like Google did. And it's focused on a lot of blue-collar, community-based jobs, which interestingly, from a recruitment advertising standpoint, are some of the hardest to actually fill. And so they've got an engagement platform that is very front and center. They've got a mobile platform that works really, really effectively. The characteristic of Facebook, though, is that it requires a Facebook-centric apply process. So this is something that a group of job sites, have worked with Facebook and are bringing the job inventory that they have available, where the application can actually be completed on Facebook, and the application then transmitted to the third party. They've started to work there. So if you have an applicant tracking system and you want to actually, work with Facebook and have the apply occur on your applicant tracking system, they're not ready for that yet, and they may not be. I think one of the things that Facebook is really focused on is trying to use their position to dramatically improve the experience of the job seeker. If because of their position they can, incent organizations, big and small, to rethink about their application process so that those applies could be completed on Facebook, that would be great for the job seeker. And arguably it could be great for the employer if what they do is they open up a new path for great candidates. But fundamentally speaking, it's designed for kind of hourly workers, make it very local, very centric apply process. That's a requirement, and it also is again through third parties. Though I expect as this matures, if you have a Facebook compliant apply process, this is something also that could probably pretty quickly move to employers, especially if they have lots of local jobs across the United States. Now, what does this mean for Indeed? Well, if I had a dollar for every time people said over the years the job boards were dead because Indeed came, or Indeed is dead because Google has come, or Facebook is dead because I'd have a lot of dollars. The reality is Indeed has had a tremendous amount of time to prepare for this day. They knew it was coming, and with all candor, I think Indeed is one of the sharpest and best executing shops in our entire industry. And so, Indeed's response has been really great. They've been investing heavily in brand building. So I don't know if anyone has noticed at the World Series, you had the statistics for some of the batters were their Indeed resume. You're seeing a lot of brand advertising, nationally on cable. You have radio advertising. And all of this is designed to do two things. One is to grow their small business, kind of ad buying. But secondarily is to increase the number of people that start their job search at Indeed. And again, our internal tracking data at Appcast indicates that they're being massively successful in this regard. The second thing that they just need to continue to do is just execute. And they have always been, through their entire career, about half a step ahead of everybody else. And I think that they just need to kind of keep to their knitting. But at the same time, I think there's going to be an onus on everybody in the space, whether it be Indeed or other major job providers, to continue to innovate. Because what's occurring is that, you've got a fragmented, diverse marketplace, with Indeed as the leader, but you've got Glassdoor, you've got Career Builder, you've got Monster, you've got ZipRecruiter and StartWire. You've got everybody out there. They're all gunning. The cards have been thrown in the air by Google and Facebook. But also at the same time, what you're seeing a secular change from how people are paying for their job ads. Okay, literally back in the old classified days on newspapers, you paid per word. And then Monster came along and changed how people paid for recruitment advertising by lifting and shifting classified ads online and paying per post. And now today, performance advertising, where you only pay when somebody clicks on your ad, is growing at double digits and represents the majority of the ad spends now in the recruitment advertising marketplace. So back when Indeed and Simply Hired were the only aggregators and they were the only really people selling performance, there were two of them selling pay-per-click advertising. Now literally every single provider in the United States, big and small, sell their advertising, perhaps not exclusively, but they will offer pay-for-performance advertising to their customers. And remarkably, the people that are at the forefront of this, folks that have been offering cost-per-click advertising for a long time, are already starting to offer different types of pay-for-performance advertising, such as cost-per-apply click, which is only charging when somebody after the full job description clicks the apply button, kind of like the Google page, or even fully, and this is something that Appcast offers, cost per completed apply on your applicant tracking system. And the reason why this is really, really important is that when you are paying per click, when you're paying in a performance marketplace, the mindset changes. The buyer starts to really see better alignment between their investment and their advertising dollar. And they pay a lot closer attention to measuring its performance. And it is a remarkable thing. Once a company starts to buy on a pay-for-performance basis, they start to really bring data into their decision-making process at a much deeper level. And they start to realize, this company that has this great brand that we bought from all these years because we thought that it was awesome, really isn't awesome. Well, this other source over here is really great because we recognize that if we're paying per click, we need to make sure each one of those clicks actually has a return on investment. So this shift, as more and more of the market, and right now it's well over 50%, and my expectation is that we're probably going to be in the 70+% range in the next couple of years in terms of all recruitment advertising moving to pay for performance, either pay per click or pay per apply. It drives a change in thinking in the recruitment decision maker from being someone in HR that's buying job postings to being a recruiter that is managing recruitment marketing. And once that mental shift changes, all of a sudden you start to enter a world where data and strategic decision making, really drive a change in how you kind of implement your recruitment strategy. So the inputs, Google changed, the largest social platform in the world have changed, and we've kind of hit this tipping point in 2017 where all of a sudden, bam, the world has shifted to pay for performance. And that's what's leading to kind of the Smackdown. And what's really neat about this is that besides the tactical things, and we're gonna end with this at the end. Kind of what do these changes mean for all of you as you're running your organizations every day? I think that these changes and this shift to the marketing mindset, precursors an even more powerful and valuable kind of shift in thinking in terms of how we measure our recruitment marketing and where we get our ROI. And that's where my friend Mike is going to start to talk about. So Mike, who cares about this stuff?
That is a great question. Hopefully everybody on this call understands the changes that are happening in this marketplace. I think you pointed out really well, with Google and Facebook, and just the changes even after the last 2 or 3 years, I think are really upending how companies think about optimizing their spend and talent. And I think what you mentioned at the end there around strategy and data, right? Those are the things when it comes to a talent acquisition team and leader, they need to have a much more holistic view of what that candidate experience is, what the candidate journey is, so that they can be thinking about where are we going to spend our dollars, our resources, our effort to have the biggest impact. So I think one of the things, if we take a step back and we think about how have people thought about this historically, I think you can go back to 1996 or right before the Internet came out. I hate to go that far back, but I was there right before the Internet. The way that people thought about the process was a very linear approach, right? People become aware of a job or a company, they show consideration, they apply, they get attributed, and then they become an applicant in the system. And so that goes back to you're putting an ad in the Boston Globe or the New York Times, and that was a very linear approach. And I think when the Internet first came out and you had the advent of the first job boards, the process didn't change that much, right? There wasn't all of these other options. I mean, if in 2000, 1998, 2000, you went to Monster, you found a job, you applied, and so this linear process was, even though it was imperfect, it pretty much held true, right? So if they found your job on Monster, you could attribute that to them. And I think that's where the key metric that a lot of talent acquisition leaders use, which is source of hire, was valuable, right? We're spending money. We want to know where do we get the people, not only where do we get the applicants, but where do we get our hires from? And I think this held true for the first part of 2000 and going forward. I think what's happened over the last 10, 15 years is that this is what the real candidate journey looks like, right? Because of the ubiquity of social networks, because of the ubiquity of job boards and very niche job boards, of social media sites, the candidate now can come across many different touch points. I think Robert Half International did research that shows on a candidate's given journey, they will hit upon 12 different touch points before they actually apply to your job, which I think is pretty amazing. And if you think about that and you think about, well, the last point that they touch is the source of hire, you're only getting a very small glimpse into how did that person actually end up at my career site and what actually made them apply. And so I do think that it's time for companies to kind of take a step back and say, if we're going to get smart about this, each of these touch points, and you look at each of these touch points as an opportunity to influence that person in terms of whether they're going to navigate to your brand or your company website and apply, it changes the game, right? That's where the data of having that data and understanding strategy becomes much more important. I think it's relevant for Google Jobs because some of you might be thinking, okay, well, Google Jobs, they're going to get optimized at this. Why do I have to put my jobs anywhere else? Like, I'm going to start looking at data, and maybe they're going to come in through Google Jobs, and I can just think of them as my source. I think the question you need to ask yourself is how did they get there to begin with, right? So it could be that they go to Google and they do a search and they find out about you, but they might jump over to YouTube and watch your videos. They might go to Glassdoor and look at reviews about what's your culture like and do I really want to work there. They may then follow back to your website and apply. Or the starting point of their journey could be something that came across a tweet or a LinkedIn social update. They could start there and say, hey, wait a minute, this company looks interesting, and then jump over to Google and actually apply through that mechanism. So understanding those touch points becomes really important for you to understand where you're going to optimize your money and your resources. I think a lot of companies thought back when social media came out, hey, we're going to do all these social media campaigns, we're going to do these tweets and LinkedIn status updates, and thought that that would potentially drive source of hire. And what they quickly found was the data showing that almost nobody was coming from social media sites. It was less than 1% of hires. And they could have made the false assumption that that actually made the efforts that they were putting in social media irrelevant. And actually that's not true at all, right? Those things are actually influencing the journey. And so we do think that the core measure for people to understand is that no longer should you be thinking about source of hire as much as you should be thinking about source of influence. I think the other statistic that kind of backs this up is even if somebody does come across your job on Google or some other job board, Glassdoor, or whatever you have, our data shows that on average, 74% of those people who click apply actually drop out of the apply process. So again, that's an amazing statistic. You've spent money, you found people, and 3 out of 4 of them may never get to your ATS process. And so the question is, do you understand what those journeys are, and can you go back to them and understand what is influencing them so that you have an opportunity, obviously, to optimize the apply process, make it simpler, make it easier, but have the ability to go back and put the resources into those places that actually will drive better engagement, better candidate experiences. So here's some things that we think you should be thinking about. This idea of source of influence, I think, is, for a lot of people, somewhat new. I mean, people understand inherently that, hey, people are looking at different sites, but when it comes to understanding what that data is and how they should think about it, I think it's still early days for many people. And a lot of reasons is that they don't have something that actually helps them understand what those data, that story is. Here we can just see a quick example of, on a given dashboard, if you're able to drill into not just whether people became an applicant or they got to a first interview stage or a second interview stage, but they got to the hired stage, being able to quickly see, on average, how many of the places that we are putting our jobs out, our social media sites, our email campaigns, what's the average number of touch points? So here we can see it's 6.26 touch points on average for all the hires that came in. And then you can actually see what are those sources that are actually influencing that candidate's journey. This is really powerful data, right? Because you might be able to come in and use this to understand, hey, that social media campaign that we put out or those ads that we put on Facebook are actually impacting the number of hires and influencing those people, which gives you the green light and the ability to spend a little bit more on those areas that you think are having impact. And conversely, you may be spending a lot of money and getting a lot of applicants through your touch points that are driving applicants, but actually are not not only are not the source of hire, but have very little influence over those hires. Again, giving you that data, and so that you can say, okay, those are the places we're not going to advertise as much on those. We're going to shift our money and our resources over to the places that are a little bit more impactful. Here's again understanding in the candidate's journey. Understanding what are the places that they start at, right? If you think a candidate journey starts at some point they become understanding of your company, your brand, what are those sources versus what are the last ones they click? And I would say, in general, what you'll see is a lot of times your social media, your outreach to Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook, those can actually be top initial sources. They come across an article, somebody shares something, it's a referral program, something that they click across because they're living in those social media sites all day, and they're not necessarily, maybe not even thinking about, I'm looking for a job. It's just something that catches their attention. And if you're able to capture that, you can then see through the candidate journey those people that at the end of the process, what are the last places they touch in terms of finalizing that application. And so a common one could be first touches through Facebook or Twitter, and then the last touch being, all right, I'm going to go to Google, search on this company, and apply through that process. Understanding all of those touch points from beginning to end and in between, again, is going to give you that data to understand where you should shift your resources and your budget going forward. And then this is just another example of a way of looking at, it's a little busy, probably hard to see here, but at the bottom here, percentage of applicants per source, right? So, and then this is a source of influence, not source of applicant, as well as percentage of hires. So what you want to quickly see is at every stage you might want to be looking at what are those sources that are actually influencing applicants, right? It could be that the final way that a candidate gets into your ATS system is coming from Google or Facebook, but you can see that these 3 other sources are actually influencing it, that they went and touched those things. And same thing with the number of hires, again, where you can quickly see on a percentile basis those sources that are driving those the hires across your board. So I think it's really having that understanding to see those data points, have a system that can help you do that multi-touch attribution, gives you those data insights so that you can get smarter about where you're going to spend your dollars. And I think to bring this back to what Chris was talking about, once you have that data, you become much smarter about using much more targeted pay-per-performance campaigns to really maximize where you're placing those ads so you get the best impact and you get the best quality candidates. So I think, Chris, we'll maybe shift here to kind of recommendations for the group in terms of what we're saying they should be thinking about going into 2018.
Absolutely. And so I guess the simplest one is something that probably everyone's financial advisor, when it comes to your retirement accounts or your kids' college accounts, it's pretty similar advice. In a period of uncertainty, don't make big bets. Okay? I mean, if you basically blur your eyes and listen to what Mike and I have been saying, is that there's a ton of things that are changing. I mean, Google and Facebook are coming in. The pay models are changing. Mike's is presenting a thesis that states we might be measuring the wrong things, and we don't really know what is driving, the outcomes that we're attributing to inaction directly. I mean, we may be doing stuff, over here in social media that we can't measure the impact of that is critical to what we're doing in kind of driving hires. And so at a particular level, I guess if the blur your eyes, kind of comment here is keep your powder dry, make the investments that you need to make. But one of the great benefits of the pay-for-performance world is that, the need to buy annualized contracts up front decreases. And that has to do with just the way the pay-for-performance works. In the old days, the way that you got a discount on your ad buys was to buy a whole bunch of job postings up front. The reality is in the pay-for-performance world, each click is bought in an auction at that point in time. So interestingly, buying in volume does not necessarily improve the unit economics of a click in an auction. And an auction is the way Google SEM works. An auction is the way Indeed works. An auction is the way that most pay-for-performance platforms in the job space work. And so, again, endeavor to think and kind of keep your powder dry. The next three things. First is Google for Jobs. We're getting a lot of questions I'm seeing in the feed right now about how to get how to get your jobs indexed by Google. There's some great materials out on the web. Some friends over at CH2M Hill and KRT did a great job about how to get jobs indexed directly onto Google. It is something that is mildly technical, but it is not above anybody's capability on this call to get it done. And as soon as you do that, you will see an increase in the organic traffic coming directly to your site, which means a decrease in your recruiting costs. Everyone here should monitor Facebook for Jobs. It's something that most likely, unless you are a company that hires in massive volume in the blue-collar local space, and you have your own hosted apply process where you can build a technical integration with Facebook, you're probably not ready to go work with them directly yet. But we should all as a community kind of continue to manage that and keep track, because if and when it becomes available for the broad middle part of the market, people that use applicant tracking systems, it will probably have the same type of impact that Google is having in the business. And the last one, with the stipulation that this is self-serving, but it is also something that I truly believe is good advice, is that as more and more organizations move to buying pay for performance, doing so intelligently to ensure your ROI can be less than direct. In fact, it can be complex. And that's one of the things about pay for performance advertising is it has lots of upsides, but one of them is not, it's simple. And so, what Appcast does, and there are other people that do this as well, but we make software that makes it very, very easy for organizations to buy pay-for-performance advertising and to optimize it effectively. And so if this is, moving to pay-for-performance is something that you're interested in, or you already buy a lot of, cost-per-click advertising or even cost-per-applicant advertising, take a look at the ad exchanges and the bidding software that's on the market, and you'll probably find that they represent an efficiency and optimization tool that would be valuable. So, Mike, I think you're handling the next group.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the next points are first around the candidate experience. I think all of you probably have heard about the Candies Award. I think that the industry has rallied around understanding that you need to provide a consumer level experience to your candidates. That's what they're expecting today. That's what they're demanding. And so it really is going to drive the effectiveness of your ability to get more engagement and higher conversion rates through your career site and into your ATS. I think one of the things I wanted to piggyback on what Chris said was, when you think about this new Google Jobs shift that's going on, as Chris said, Google's playing an even role in terms of serving up jobs, whether they're from your career site, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, other sites, and leaving it up to the candidate to help determine who the winner is going to be. And Google's going to influence that by how well you do your job in terms of controlling that candidate experience, right? So the more that you can be Google friendly, and that means adding very rich information and metadata to your jobs on your career site. For example, I don't know if you saw this, but if you actually include the location of the job, Google, because they've got the integration with Google Maps, when that job comes up, they'll actually be able to show you commute times from where that person lives, right? So all of those things, in addition to some of the other data that you can include in your metadata with Google Jobs, could provide and should provide a better candidate experience. So a majority of those people are clicking on the links that go to your career site versus Glassdoor, and that will reduce your overall cost and improve quality. And once they get to your career site, I think the other part of this is that finding your job is the first part of the problem, but providing a compelling experience is something that you can control as well, right? Are you just showing up the job? Are you putting out more relevant information, awards you've won, your culture, your vision, your values on that career site to really get the candidate engaged so you've got higher conversion rates? I think that's something that you should really be thinking about improving. Start with socializing this idea of source of influence. For many of you, you might have heard this term, but you don't really readily talk about it within your talent acquisition team. You're not going to be, we're not preaching here that you're going to go boil the ocean. I think a starting point and a realistic starting point is to get your talent acquisition team together, maybe get some people from your marketing team, and have a discussion around what are all the potential touch points that our candidates could be interacting with. It's the corporate website, it's your Glassdoor, it's your LinkedIn, it's your Twitter feeds, it's your YouTube channels, and start thinking about what those sources of influence are and what are the things that you think you should be doing to drive and control that candidate journey to your site. I think the other thing you should start thinking about is how can we potentially start tracking those sources so that we can have that data and the strategy to improve on it. And then this last bullet point is really what I just kind of talked about, which is we don't think you should outsource the career site in terms of just relying on whatever ATS you're using. We really think you should own it. And that means providing a consistent branded experience. So whether the candidate is coming to your corporate site and clicks over to your career site, they're coming from job boards, you want to have that consistency so that the candidate feels like they're dealing and have that consumer level experience. And being able to control that gives you the ability to one, understand the website traffic and understanding how they're coming to your website. It gives you the ability to have additional calls to action, right? So maybe a candidate gets to your career site, they're not ready to apply, but you want to have a Join My Talent Network or sign up for an event. But owning that career site will give you the control so that you can start getting the data to make again, better strategic decisions going forward.
Here we are, which leads us to, when we talked about Smackdown, we had to have a picture here of wrestling, right? And so this is our wrestling Smackdown picture, and I think that this is, including the wrestling masks and all, probably going to be indicative of what 2018 is going to look like, but in a truly awesome, Andre the Giant type of way. And what I mean by that is that I think that by Google doing what it did, by pay for performance driving a mind shift change in how recruitment leaders look at their advertising, and kind of forcing recruiting leaders to make the transition from being HR people that buy postings to being recruiting leaders and marketers that are buying, recruitment media and advertising. Is that the Smackdown is this increase in competition is going to drive two things. The first thing is that it is going to drive a massive level of innovation in the job search space. Right now, most job sites, it's about job discovery, finding the job and being able to click on it and go apply. But in the post-Google world, if Google continues to have what I call the kayak interface that allows people to choose how they want to apply for the job or choose which site they want to go to learn more about the job, there's going to be a massive, massive incentive for sites to invest in highly valuable tools for job seekers. So when you come to that page, it's like, do I want to click on Glassdoor, or do I want to click on Career Builder, or do I want to click on LinkedIn or ZipRecruiter or StartWire? And you're going to choose one of those because you know those places offer something. And especially when the ATS button shows up, it's like I can apply directly at CH2M Hill. Those job sites are going to have to really invest in building awesome tools for job seekers, and that's good for people looking for work. So that's one benefit of the Smackdown. The other benefit of the Smackdown is that as folks move to this marketing mindset, they are going to invest in hiring people that have a marketing background, and they are going to invest in tools to truly measure the ROI and impact of all their recruitment marketing behaviors, whether that's buying advertising, whether that's social media marketing, whether that's offline marketing. And the impact of that is once we start to measure as a community, as a profession, what works and what doesn't work, it is going to lead to the next generation of investment, because we're going to learn things about how to acquire job seekers that we actually want to hire and that we don't know right now. And this move to using data and analytics and software to help us manage that is going to expose those things. And those learnings are going to unleash the next kind of bit of innovation in our space. So while the Smackdown picture is funny, this type of moment, this paradigm shift that's occurred, in my opinion, I think we're going to look back on it and we're going to say, you know what? This is the year when a bunch of things started to change, and quite candidly, I think a bunch of things started to change for the best. That's what I got to say, Mike. You got any closing words?
I think I'm in agreement. There's uncharted territory in front of us, but exciting times, and I think a lot of opportunities for companies to take advantage of these changes and get ahead of it.
Sweet.
All right.
Okay, Allison, back to you.
Great. Thank you so much to both of you. That was awesome. I know I learned a lot today. I hope everyone else on the line did too. So we have a couple minutes for Q&A before we have to say goodbye. So let's see what we have on the line here. So the first question I want to ask, Chris, this one might be for you. We have a couple questions around kind of the relationship between Indeed and Google for Jobs, and people kind of asking why did Indeed opt out, or why are Indeed's results not showing up? Can you speak to that a little bit?
So I have no inside information. So I have not been told by anyone at Google or Indeed about why the decision was made. I have my own thoughts. And so my thoughts that I'm sharing here are just those of a cantankerous, gray-haired old guy from the industry. I believe that Indeed made the decision so back up. Indeed has a lot of jobs that are nowhere else on the web, meaning they are not posted on an applicant tracking system. They are not in a newspaper. They are not anywhere. These jobs come from people that use Indeed to host the job content, okay, and to manage the apply, predominantly from the SMB space. I believe Indeed is making the decision that keeping that content unique to Indeed, meaning that being able to tell job seekers that they can find all the jobs everywhere else on the web, but they can get access to a corpus of unique jobs that no one else has, is more valuable than the traffic that they were getting that they would get from Google.
I think that's a pretty smart theory, honestly. And thanks for sharing it with us. So I have another question, and I think this is actually a pretty good one. So does Google for Jobs have kind of a paid placement feature yet, or do you think that's coming down the line?
I think that again, I don't have any inside information, but if we were to play a game of chess, I think that we'll forget chess. Let's start with a fundamental thesis that says Google sells advertising to make money. Okay, that's one of their core businesses, is selling advertising. I shared some data that indicates, and granted, my data may be wrong, but I trust my data, that indicates the ads that Google was selling before they implemented their job search. They got more revenue from those ads because they showed more ads, okay, than they do after they made the job change. Effectively, Google's making less money today on job AdWords than they were before the change. So they've decided to take a pay cut when people type in job search keywords with this new approach. And if you stipulate to the thesis that Google is in this in the long run to make money, and you believe the initial data that we have that they're showing fewer ads that they get paid for, then here's a situation where they've made a change and they're making less money. So I think it's logical to think that at some point they're going to want to fix that, and they're going to want to go and endeavor to create a new revenue stream that will offset some of the ad revenue losses that they've seen since the introduction of Google for Jobs. If I was a betting man, I believe that Google is interested more in unique job content, meaning from small businesses that don't have applicant tracking systems that can't be spidered, than the revenue in the short run. So I imagine the first thing they're going to do is roll out a small business product that will allow people that own a pizza shop or a lawn mowing business to post their ads easily on Google and maybe pay a little bit of money and get a lot of great applicants. Because that content is going to be something that will attract job seekers and will improve the value of the Google for Jobs index. I think down the road, there will probably be an opportunity for marketers to buy advertising on a performance basis on Google in kind of the Google for Jobs environment. And that would be more along the lines of what they historically have done in terms of cost per click or kind of advertising. But if I was in Vegas, I would be putting my chips on something that is probably more focused towards small business buyers, because I think they're really interested in that job content that they can't get anywhere else.
Insightful. Yeah, I think that sounds pretty spot on from my view. So, thanks for sharing your perspective. And if we have time for one more question, Mike, we were getting a lot of questions on how are you actually tracking every step of the journey? How are you tracking source of influence for each candidate? Can you just speak a little bit to how that actually works?
Sure. So, I mean, obviously you can research other solutions that provide that kind of tracking technology. I mean, from a self-serving perspective, obviously SmashFly, that's one of the things we do. We have our own proprietary tracking technology, and so the way that works is that multiple ads, marketing ads, job ads are automatically distributed out through our platform so that we're essentially tracking it. But then individually, recruiters, people from the team can place links on Glassdoor, on Facebook, on links to blog articles, on shares, using the same proprietary technology. And so through those links, we're capturing, as an anonymous user clicks, we're capturing that journey and storing it such that when they come into your career site and they convert at some level, it doesn't have to be that they apply for a job. It could be you're having an upcoming event and they complete a, hey, sign up for this event, or download this white paper, or join our talent network. That history then converts in, so you've got the complete link tracking across of that journey. And then as that user continues to interact with your ads, the system is keeping track of that, right? So you get the full journey through any of the links that they're clicking. And that's, that from our perspective is a best practice to use kind of a central tracking technology so that you can tie together all the different things on a candidate journey, whether it's they're clicking on an email campaign, or they're clicking on an SMS message, or they're clicking on a job ad from Google.
Great. All right, thank you so much, Mike. I think we're out of time for today, guys, but I have to say thank you so much again for sharing your perspectives and expertise with us. It was a great time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Have a great day, all.